Morning people aren't made, they're born with different clock genes. Chronotype is determined by genetics, specifically the PER3 gene, which controls whether you're naturally a morning lark or night owl. Your internal clock is hardwired from birth. Fighting your natural rhythm decreases productivity and increases health risks. You can't become a morning person through willpower if your genes say otherwise. Night owls forced into early schedules experience chronic jet lag. This explains why some people thrive at 6 a.m. while others come alive at midnight. You touch your face 23 times per hour without realizing it. Studies show people unconsciously touch their faces 16 to 23 times hourly, primarily the mouth, nose, and eyes. This automatic behavior spreads 80% of infectious diseases. Your hands become pathogen highways to vulnerable entry points. This is why hand washing matters more than you think. Every face touch after touching a doorknob, phone, or keyboard transfers bacteria and viruses directly to mucous membranes. Awareness is the first step to breaking this disease-spreading habit. Your mood changes what you eat, and what you eat changes your mood. Emotional eating isn't weakness, it's biology. Stress increases cortisol, which drives cravings for high-fat, high-sugar foods that temporarily boost serotonin. Then blood sugar crashes, worsening mood. The cycle becomes self-perpetuating. This explains why breakups lead to ice cream binges and why comfort food actually provides temporary comfort. The problem isn't the craving, it's the crash that follows, creating a mood-food roller coaster. You make 35,000 decisions daily, most before breakfast. Research shows the average adult makes 35,000 remotely conscious decisions each day. What to wear, what to eat, which route to take. Each decision depletes mental energy. By evening, decision fatigue makes you choose poorly. This is why successful people wear the same outfit daily and automate breakfast choices. Steve Jobs, Mark Zuckerberg, and Barack Obama eliminated trivial decisions to preserve mental energy for important ones. Decision minimization is productivity maximization. Walking through doorways makes you forget why you entered the room. The doorway effect is real. Passing through a threshold signals your brain to file away previous context and prepare for new information. Physical boundaries create mental boundaries. Your memory resets at every door. This explains the "why did I come in here" phenomenon. Your brain treats doorways as event boundaries, separating what happened in one room from what happens in the next. Walking back through the doorway often restores the memory. You blink 15 to 20 times per minute, but your brain hides it from you. Blinking creates 1.2 seconds of darkness per minute, totaling 7 minutes of blindness per waking day. Your brain fills these gaps with assumed continuity. You never experience the blackness because consciousness edits it out. This is why you don't notice others blinking either. Your brain automatically compensates for visual interruptions, creating the illusion of continuous sight. Reality is actually a series of snapshots with manufactured connections. Morning showers wake you up. Evening showers help you sleep. Temperature timing affects circadian rhythms. Morning cold showers spike cortisol and adrenaline, jump-starting alertness. Evening warm showers raise then drop core body temperature, signaling sleep time. Water temperature becomes biological messaging. This explains why some people swear by morning showers while others need evening ones. It's not preference, it's using temperature to hack your body's natural wake-sleep cycle. Timing matters more than the shower itself. You check your phone 6 times daily, once every 10 minutes while awake. Research shows the average person checks their phone 6 times per day. That's once every 10 waking minutes. Each check fragments attention and raises stress hormones. Constant connectivity creates constant distraction. This explains why you feel busy but unproductive. Every phone check interrupts focus, requiring 23 minutes to fully return to the original task. 96 interruptions mean you never achieve deep work. Your phone is destroying your concentration. Sitting is killing you slowly, even if you exercise. Prolonged sitting increases mortality risk by 40%, regardless of exercise habits. Sitting shuts down electrical activity in leg muscles, drops metabolic rate, and reduces good cholesterol. Standing desks aren't trendy. They're survival. This means your gym session doesn't cancel your desk job. 8 hours of sitting followed by 1 hour of exercise still damages health. The solution is frequent movement throughout the day, not intense exercise that bookends sedentary behavior. You eat 92% more when dining with others than eating alone. Social facilitation of eating is well documented. Dining with one other person increases consumption by 35%. With 7 or more people, intake jumps 92%. Conversation extends meal duration, and social norms encourage matching others' eating pace. This is why restaurants seem to make you hungrier and why family dinners lead to overeating. You're not actually hungrier. You're unconsciously synchronizing eating behavior with those around you, consuming far more than you would solo. Your posture changes your hormone levels within 2 minutes. Power posing, standing tall with open body language for 2 minutes, increases testosterone by 20% and decreases cortisol by 25%. Slouching does the opposite. Physical position literally alters body chemistry. Confidence becomes biochemistry. This explains why you feel different sitting up straight versus hunched over. Your body interprets posture as emotional state, then produces matching hormones. Fake confidence long enough, and your endocrine system makes it real. You forget 50% of new information within an hour without review. The forgetting curve shows 50% of new information disappears within 1 hour, 70% within 24 hours, and 90% within a week. Memory requires reinforcement. Single exposure equals inevitable loss. Learning without review is wasting time. This is why cramming fails and spaced repetition works. Your brain needs repeated exposure over time to move information from short-term to long-term storage. One-time learning is temporary by design. You speak 16,000 words daily, but most are filler. Research shows women average 16,000 words per day, men 15,000. Yet most conversation is phatic communication, social grooming, rather than information exchange. How are you? Isn't a real question. It's a social lubricant maintaining connections. This explains why small talk feels empty but necessary. You're not exchanging information. You're performing social bonding rituals that maintain relationship. The words matter less than the act of speaking them. You spend 6 months of your life waiting at red lights. The average driver spends 2 weeks per year at red lights, totaling 6 months over a lifetime. This idle time increases stress hormones, particularly when late. Red lights become patience tests that most people fail. This explains road rage. It's not just the destination. It's the forced inactivity when your brain is in go mode. The mismatch between intention and reality creates frustration that escalates with each additional red light. You nod during conversations to make others talk 3 to 4 times longer. Nonverbal encouragement significantly extends speaking duration. Simple nods signal active listening and encourage continuation. Speakers subconsciously seek these micro-affirmations. Absence of nodding shortens responses by 60–70%. This is why good listeners seem to make others talk endlessly. They're not doing anything special except providing consistent nonverbal feedback. Nods are conversation fuel. Stop nodding and people stop talking. You remember music from your teenage years better than any other period. The reminiscence bump shows enhanced memory for experiences between ages 10 to 30, peaking at 15 to 25. Music during this period becomes permanently embedded. Your brain associates these songs with identity formation, making them unforgettable. This explains why your parents' music sounds old, but yours sounds timeless. Every generation believes their music is the best because it's neurologically linked to their most formative years. Nostalgia is neuroscience. You tip more when servers touch your arm or shoulder briefly. Brief, appropriate touch increases tips by 20–30%. Physical contact creates perceived connection and trust. A light shoulder touch lasting 1 to 2 seconds makes diners feel special and attended to, triggering reciprocal generosity. This works because touch releases oxytocin, the bonding hormone. Your brain interprets brief contact as friendliness and personal attention. even when you know it's calculated. The response is automatic despite awareness. You walk faster when someone is behind you. Social facilitation of walking speed occurs automatically. When someone follows at a similar pace, your walking speed increases by 7–15% without conscious awareness. Personal space invasion triggers avoidance acceleration. This explains why crowded sidewalks feel exhausting. You're constantly adjusting pace to maintain distance from others, expending extra physical and mental energy. Solo walking is physically easier because you maintain natural rhythm. You eat faster when you're served on larger plates. The Delboeuf illusion makes portion sizes appear smaller on larger plates, leading to 22% increased consumption. Plate size tricks perception, and perception controls appetite. Serving size matters less than container size. This is why restaurant portions lead to overeating, and why switching to smaller plates aids weight loss. Your brain judges fullness partly by visual completion of the plate, not just stomach capacity. You procrastinate on tasks that take less than 2 minutes to complete. The 2-minute rule paradox shows people delay brief tasks more than long ones. Quick tasks feel too insignificant to do now, accumulating into overwhelming lists. Mental burden of remembering exceeds effort of completing. This explains why you'll research a project for hours but won't respond to a simple email. Big tasks feel important enough to schedule. Small tasks feel dismissible, then pile up until the collective weight paralyzes action. You mirror the body language of people you like within 2 to 4 seconds. Limbic system-mediated mimicry happens unconsciously and rapidly. When you like someone, you automatically match their posture, gestures, and expressions within seconds. This synchrony builds rapport and signals affiliation. This is why job interviews and first dates feel good or awkward. If mirroring happens naturally, connection flows. If it doesn't, both parties feel the misalignment even without knowing why. Chemistry is partly synchronized movement. Remember, negatives 5 times longer than positives. Negativity bias ensures negative experiences stick in memory longer and stronger than positive ones of equal intensity. One criticism requires 5 compliments to neutralize. Evolution made threats more memorable than rewards. This explains why you remember the one bad review among hundreds of good ones, why arguments stick but compliments fade. Your brain is wired to learn from threats, not treasures. Survival required remembering danger. You spend 4 hours daily in device posture, damaging your spine. Text neck, the forward head position while using devices, adds 60 pounds of pressure to the cervical spine. 4 hours daily of this position accelerates disc degeneration and creates chronic pain. Your phone is literally changing your skeletal structure. This explains the epidemic of neck and upper back pain in young adults. Previous generations didn't spend childhood looking down at screens. The human skeleton isn't designed for sustained forward neck flexion. Evolution meets technology, and you lose. You interrupt others more than you think, averaging once every 3 minutes in conversation. Conversation analysis shows people interrupt far more than they estimate. Average interruption rate is once every 3 minutes. Most interruptions aren't hostile. They're enthusiastic, cooperative, overlapping, but they still break flow and thought completion. This is why you think you're a good listener, but others disagree. You notice when interrupted, not when you interrupt. Recording your conversations would reveal constant overlapping that you genuinely don't remember doing. You use 200 muscles to take 1 step, yet never think about walking. Walking involves 200 muscles working in precise coordination, yet proceeds entirely unconsciously. Once learned, walking becomes automatic procedural memory. Conscious thought actually impairs walking efficiency. This explains why thinking about walking makes you stumble, why drunk people can't walk straight. Alcohol impairs the automatic systems, forcing conscious control of an unconscious process. Automation is precision, consciousness is clumsy. You breathe 20,000 times daily without awareness until someone mentions it. Breathing operates automatically through the medulla oblongata, requiring 0 conscious effort. Now that it's mentioned, you're suddenly aware of every breath. Awareness paradoxically makes automatic processes feel manual. This is why meditation focusing on breath is hard. You're trying to observe an automatic process which partially transfers control to consciousness. The breath becomes simultaneously automatic and manual, creating mental tension. You form first impressions in 7 seconds, but need 100 hours to revise them. Initial judgments form within 7 seconds of meeting someone, based largely on non-verbal cues. Changing this first impression requires approximately 100 hours of contradictory evidence. First impressions aren't just powerful, they're nearly permanent. This explains why job interviews matter so much and why recovering from a bad first date is nearly impossible. Those first seconds create a lens through which all future behavior is interpreted. You retain 10% of what you hear, 50% of what you see, 90% of what you do. Learning retention varies dramatically by method. Listening alone yields 10% retention after 24 hours. Adding visuals increases to 50%. Physical practice reaches 90%. Passive learning is almost useless. This explains why lectures feel educational but produce little learning. You're using the least effective method. Retention requires action. Reading about swimming doesn't teach swimming. Only swimming teaches swimming. You lie 1 to 2 times daily on average, mostly to avoid hurting feelings. Research shows adults lie once or twice per day on average. Most aren't malicious deceptions, but social lubricants. I'm fine. Sorry I'm late. Traffic was terrible. I'd love to, but I'm busy. White lies maintain social harmony. This means everyone you know lies to you daily, and you lie to them too. Total honesty would destroy relationships. Society functions on a foundation of kind deceptions that protect feelings and smooth interactions. You spend 1.5 hours daily looking for misplaced items. The average person spends 10 minutes per day searching for lost keys, phones, wallets, and other items. Over a year, that's 61 hours, nearly 4 full days of just looking for things. Disorganization is a massive time tax. This explains why organized people seem more productive. They're not working harder or faster, they're just not losing hours weekly to searching for basics. Organization isn't aesthetic, it's temporal efficiency. You yawn more when you see someone else yawn, especially if you like them. Contagious yawning occurs in 40–60% of people and is linked to empathy and social bonds. You're more likely to catch a yawn from friends than strangers. Mirror neurons fire, creating automatic imitation. Yawning becomes empathy measurement. This explains why yawning spreads through rooms and why reading about yawning makes you yawn now. Your brain simulates observed actions, including yawns. Empathy is partly involuntary mimicry. You taste food differently based on plate color. Food served on white plates tastes saltier. Red plates suppress appetite. Blue plates enhance sweetness perception. Color creates flavor expectations that your brain fulfills. Presentation becomes taste. This is why restaurants carefully choose plate colors and why Instagram food looks better on certain backgrounds. Your eyes tell your tongue what to expect and your tongue obeys. Seeing is tasting. You walk in circles when lost without visual landmarks. Humans cannot walk in straight lines without external reference points. In forests or deserts, people walk in circles despite believing they're going straight. Your sense of direction is visual, not internal. Remove landmarks, lose orientation. This explains why people die from exposure close to safety. They walk all day thinking they're progressing, but they're circling. Your internal navigation is completely unreliable without visual anchors. You remember faces better when they're angry rather than happy. Angry faces grab attention faster and stick in memory longer than happy ones. Threat detection out-prioritizes friend recognition. Your brain evolved to remember dangers more than delights. Fear beats joy in the memory Olympics. This is why that one person who was rude to you years ago remains vivid while dozens of pleasant interactions fade. Your brain tags negative faces as important threat data, while pleasant faces get archived as probably fine. You sing better in the shower due to acoustics, not skill. Bathroom acoustics create reverb and amplify lower frequencies, making voices sound richer and more resonant. The echo masks pitch imperfections and adds harmonic complexity. The shower doesn't improve singing, it improves sound. This explains why you sound amazing in the shower but terrible in recordings. The bathroom is a natural audio enhancer. Your actual voice hasn't changed, just the acoustic environment around it. You can only maintain close relationships with about 5 people at a time. Dunbar's number shows humans can maintain approximately 150 casual relationships, 50 good friends, 15 close friends, and 5 intimate relationships. Cognitive and time limits cap meaningful connections. Beyond these numbers, relationships become superficial. This explains why your friend group shrinks after college or when you have kids. You don't have enough mental bandwidth for more. Every new close relationship requires sacrificing an existing one or downgrading it. You overestimate how much you'll accomplish tomorrow. Planning fallacy makes people underestimate task duration by 40–50%. Tomorrow always seems to have more time than today. Optimism bias convinces you you will be more productive than present you. This is why to-do lists never get finished and why you're always behind schedule. You're not lazy or incompetent. You're human, and humans are terrible at estimating future time availability. You grip your phone with 10 pounds of force, causing repetitive strain. Smartphones require continuous low-level muscle tension in hands, wrists, and forearms. Over time, this causes carpal tunnel syndrome, tendinitis, and trigger finger. Your thumb wasn't designed for 4 hours of daily scrolling. This explains the epidemic of hand and wrist pain in young adults. Previous generations didn't perform thousands of daily micro-movements with their thumbs. Technology created injuries that didn't exist 20 years ago. You speak at 125 to 150 words per minute, but think at 800 words per minute. Your brain processes thoughts 4 to 6 times faster than you can speak them. This creates constant internal conversation and explains why listening is hard. While someone speaks, your brain has time to think multiple competing thoughts. This is why staying focused in conversations is difficult and why you forget what someone just said. Your mind races ahead, creating internal dialogue that drowns out incoming words. You trust attractive people more even when you know you shouldn't. Beauty bias makes people perceive attractive individuals as more honest, intelligent, and trustworthy. This holds even when you're aware of the bias. Attractiveness creates a halo effect that reason cannot override. This explains why attractive criminals get lighter sentences and why beautiful people earn 10–15% more. Physical appearance unconsciously signals genetic fitness, which your brain mistakes for character fitness. You eat 25% more from larger packaging regardless of hunger. Package size dramatically affects consumption. People eat 25–50% more from family-sized packages than individual portions of the same food. Visual cues override internal hunger signals. Seeing more makes you eat more. This is why buying bulk to save money often backfires. You consume the excess rather than saving it. The money saved on unit price disappears into overconsumption. You remember trauma in fragments, not linear narratives. Traumatic memories encode differently than normal ones, stored in the amygdala as sensory fragments rather than in the hippocampus as coherent stories. This creates flashbacks, non-linear recall, and memory gaps. Trauma memories aren't stories, they're scattered pieces. This explains why trauma survivors can't just tell what happened. The memory doesn't exist as a narrative. It exists as scattered sensory data, a smell, a sound, a feeling, disconnected in time and space. You touch your phone 2,617 times daily. The average smartphone user touches their device 2,617 times per day. Heavy users hit 5,400 touches daily. That's constant physical and attentional engagement with the device. Your phone is your primary relationship. This explains phantom vibration syndrome and the anxiety from phone separation. You're not addicted to technology. You're addicted to the constant stimulation of 2,617 daily dopamine microhits. You make decisions based on the last digit of prices. Charm pricing, ending prices in 99 or 95, increases sales by 20–30% despite consumers knowing the tactic. Your brain processes prices left to right, anchoring on the first digit. $4.99 feels significantly cheaper than $5. This explains why everything costs $19.99 instead of $20. Retailers aren't hoping you don't notice the penny difference. They're exploiting how your brain processes numerical information. You judge time duration by how many memories were created. Time perception is retrospective. Familiar, routine periods feel short because few distinct memories form. Novel, eventful periods feel long because each new experience creates a memory marker. Boredom compresses time. Novelty expands it. This explains why childhood felt endless, but adult years fly by. Kids experience constant novelty. Adults experience routine. More memories make time feel longer. Same days blend into forgettable sameness. You can hold 7 items in working memory, plus or minus 2. Working memory capacity averages 7 items, ranging from 5 to 9, depending on the person. This limits how much new information you can process simultaneously. Exceed this capacity, and earlier items get pushed out. This is why phone numbers are 7 digits, why chunking information aids memory, and why multitasking fails. Your brain's RAM is tiny. You can't upgrade it, only optimize how you use it. You experience buyer's remorse within 24 hours of 90% of impulse purchases. Post-purchase regret strikes fast and frequently. Impulsive buying creates temporary dopamine, followed by cortisol-induced regret within a day. The pleasure lasts minutes, the regret lasts days. Shopping is emotional self-sabotage. This explains returns, unopened purchases, and financial stress. The buying decision happens in emotional brain regions, while regret happens in rational ones. You're satisfied for an hour, regretful for a week. You scroll 300 feet of content daily on your phone. The average smartphone user scrolls through 300 feet of content per day, the height of a 30-story building. This creates repetitive strain, attention, fragmentation, and information overload. You're climbing a building of information daily. This explains eye strain, thumb pain, and mental exhaustion from doing nothing. You weren't doing nothing. You were processing 300 vertical feet of text, images, and videos. Scrolling is labor. You forget names immediately because you weren't listening when introduced. Name forgetting isn't memory failure, it's attention failure. During introductions, you're focused on making a good impression, planning what to say next, and managing anxiety. The name never enters memory because attention was elsewhere. This is why immediately repeating someone's name helps. It forces attention to the name itself rather than your internal dialogue. Memory requires encoding, and encoding requires attention you rarely give during introductions. You feel pain less intensely when you swear. Swearing increases pain tolerance by 50% and reduces pain perception through cathartic release. Cursing triggers emotional response centers that partially override pain signals. Profanity is analgesic. This explains why people swear when injured and why children's pain seems worse before they learn to curse. Language creates physiological effects. The right words actually change pain experience. You stand farther from people who smell different than your social group. Humans unconsciously maintain greater physical distance from those with unfamiliar scents. Smell signals group membership. Different scents trigger subtle avoidance behaviors. You literally smell your tribe and distance yourself from outsiders. This explains why immigrants often comment on how Americans smell different and vice versa. Diet, hygiene products, and environment create group scent signatures that your nose detects and your brain translates into approach or avoidance. You spend 26 years of your life sleeping, but only 20 minutes deciding what to watch. Despite sleeping for a third of life, people agonize for 20+ minutes choosing what to watch before bed. Decision paralysis about trivial entertainment outweighs actual rest. Streaming abundance creates choice overload. This explains bedtime procrastination and lost sleep. You're not too busy for sleep, you're too paralyzed by entertainment options. The paradox of choice eats into actual rest time. You eat 50% more calories mindlessly while watching screens. Distracted eating increases consumption by 25–50% because attention diverted from satiety signals. Your brain doesn't register fullness when focused elsewhere. Screens override hunger regulation. This explains weight gain during TV dinners and why eating at your desk leads to overeating. Food eaten while distracted doesn't register as eaten. Your stomach fills, but your brain missed it. You remember beginnings and endings of events, but forget middles. The primacy and recency effects make first and last items in any sequence most memorable. Middles blur together. Beginnings create impressions, endings create lasting feelings, middles disappear. This is why first dates and breakups stick, but dating middle ground fades. Why you remember how stories start and end, but not the middle. Your memory saves bookends and discards the book. You subconsciously match your walking speed to whoever you're with. Gait synchronization happens automatically between walking partners. You unconsciously adjust pace to match companions. This creates connection through physical harmony. Synchronized movement builds bonds. This explains why walking with someone significantly faster or slower feels exhausting. You're constantly fighting your natural rhythm to maintain synchronization. Compatible walking paces predict relationship compatibility. You reach for your phone within 3 minutes of waking up. 80% of smartphone users check their phones within 15 minutes of waking, with average time being 3 minutes. Your first conscious action is checking notifications. The day begins with digital dependency. This explains morning anxiety and poor sleep quality. Checking your phone immediately spikes cortisol and floods your brain with others' priorities before you've identified your own. The first input shapes the entire day. You have 6,000 to 60,000 thoughts daily, and 80% are repetitive. The human brain generates tens of thousands of thoughts daily, but the vast majority are repetitions of previous thoughts. You're mostly thinking the same thoughts on loop. Mental activity rarely produces new ideas. This explains why change is hard and why you feel mentally busy but unproductive. Your brain is extremely active, but mostly just replaying old content. Thinking isn't the same as thinking new thoughts. You spend 3 hours daily in decision deadlock over trivial choices. Research shows people spend approximately 3 hours daily in minor decision paralysis. What to wear, what to eat, which route to take. These trivial decisions consume disproportionate mental energy through over-analysis. This explains why simplifying daily choices improves life satisfaction. It's not about the optimal breakfast choice. It's about eliminating the 15 minutes spent deciding on breakfast. Time spent deciding is time stolen from doing. You retain information better when writing by hand than typing. Handwriting engages more brain regions and requires deeper processing than typing, leading to 25% better retention and comprehension. The physical act of writing creates motor memory that typing doesn't. Keyboards trade depth for speed. This explains why students who handwrite notes outperform laptop note-takers despite having fewer notes. Writing forces summarization and engagement. Typing enables transcription without comprehension. You feel emotion before you can name it. Emotional processing occurs 200 to 500 milliseconds before conscious awareness. You feel before you think. The body reacts first, then the conscious mind catches up and labels the feeling. Emotion precedes thought. This explains why you can't think your way out of feelings and why just calm down never works. By the time you're aware of anger, your body is already angry. Consciousness names emotions, it doesn't create them. You trust people who maintain eye contact for 7 to 10 seconds, not longer. Optimal eye contact duration is 7 to 10 seconds. Shorter feels evasive, longer feels aggressive. This narrow window signals confidence and honesty. Your brain calculates trust through eye contact duration. This explains why job interviews emphasize eye contact and why liars often overcompensate with too much. The Goldilocks zone of gaze creates connection. Too little or too much destroys it. You experience Tetris effect where repeated activities replay in your mind. Cognitive after images occur after intense, repetitive tasks. Play Tetris for hours, and you'll see falling blocks when closing your eyes. Your brain continues processing patterns long after the activity ends. This explains why work thoughts intrude at night and why you can't stop thinking about things you do repeatedly. Your brain doesn't have an off switch. Pattern recognition continues unconsciously. You attribute your own behavior to situations, but others' behavior to personality. Actor-observer bias makes you excuse your mistakes as circumstantial while judging others' identical mistakes as character flaws. You're late because traffic was bad. They're late because they're inconsiderate. Same action, different attribution. This destroys relationships because everyone gets credit for good intentions while others get blamed for bad character. You're always the hero of circumstance. Everyone else is their actions. You spend 3.5 years of your life scrolling social media. The average person spends 2.5 hours daily on social media. Over a 70-year life with 40 years of smartphone use, that's 36,500 hours, or 3.5 years of continuous scrolling. You're trading years for likes. This explains the shocked feeling when you check screen time. It doesn't feel like 2.5 hours daily because it's fragmented into hundreds of micro sessions. Death by 1,000 scrolls. You judge food taste 30% by appearance before eating. Visual presentation significantly affects taste perception. Attractively plated food tastes better in blind tests despite being identical. Your eyes set flavor expectations that your tongue confirmed. Seeing is believing, even in taste. This is why restaurant food seems better than home cooking and why food photography exists. You taste with your eyes first. Beautiful food creates beautiful flavor through expectation fulfillment. You can only maintain visual attention for 8 seconds on average. Human attention span for visual content has dropped from 12 seconds in 2000 to 8 seconds today, now shorter than a goldfish's 9 seconds. Digital media has retrained brains for rapid content consumption. Sustained focus is dying. This explains TikTok, why long videos need constant cuts, and why reading feels harder. Your brain has been conditioned for constant novelty. Anything longer than 8 seconds feels like work. You wash your hands correctly only 5% of the time. Effective hand washing requires 20 seconds of friction with soap, cleaning under nails and between fingers. Studies show only 5% of people meet this standard. Most hand washing is theatre, not hygiene. You're doing it wrong. This explains why diseases spread despite hand washing awareness. You're going through the motions without proper technique. Quick rinses remove some dirt but leave most pathogens intact. You experience face pareidolia, seeing faces in inanimate objects daily. Your brain is hardwired to detect faces, even where none exist. This fusiform face area activation makes you see faces in clouds, outlets, cars, and toast. Pattern recognition gone haywire becomes face hallucination. This explains religious imagery in food and why some designs feel creepy. Your face detection is so powerful it creates false positives constantly. Every pattern gets tested for faceness first. You stand up from a chair using your leg muscles 60 times daily. On average, you transition from sitting to standing approximately 60 times per day. Each requires coordination of multiple muscle groups. This mundane action becomes cardiovascular exercise when repeated dozens of times. This explains why fidgeting and frequent standing burn more calories than exercise. It's not the intensity of each movement, but the cumulative effect of thousands of daily micro-movements that matter. You shift body weight every 20 to 30 seconds when standing to prevent fatigue. Static standing is impossible. Your body constantly shifts weight between feet, adjusts posture, and micro-moves to prevent muscle fatigue and maintain circulation. Standing still is actually continuous micro-movement. This explains why standing desks still cause fatigue and why guards sway. Your body isn't designed for static positions. Movement is biological imperative. Even when standing still, you process visual information 60,000 times faster than text. The brain processes images in 13 milliseconds, while reading requires conscious sequential processing. Visual information highways are 60,000 times faster than textual ones. A picture isn't worth 1,000 words. It's worth 1,000 milliseconds. This explains why infographics work, why visual learning is most effective, and why videos dominate content. Your brain is fundamentally visual. Text is an evolutionary afterthought requiring conscious translation. You judge trustworthiness in 100 milliseconds based solely on facial features. Trust judgments form in 100 milliseconds, 1/10 of a second, based purely on facial structure. Round faces with large eyes signal trustworthy. Angular faces with small eyes signal threatening. These snap judgments are often wrong, but persist. This explains first impression, power, and facial appearance discrimination. Before conscious thought engages, limbic system has already decided if someone is safe. Later information rarely overrides this instant verdict. You laugh 15 times daily on average, usually not at humor. Adults laugh approximately 15 times per day, far less than the 300 times children laugh. Most adult laughter isn't at jokes, but social signaling of agreement, comfort, and connection. Laughter is communication, not entertainment response. This explains why laugh tracks work and why you laugh more with others than alone. Laughter oils social machinery. It signals, I'm with you, more than, that's funny. Comedy isn't what makes you laugh most. Company is. You blink asymmetrically when lying, but don't when telling truth. Deception increases blink rate and creates asymmetric blinking patterns as cognitive load rises. Truth-telling maintains steady, symmetric blinking. Your eyelids betray dishonesty through irregular patterns your conscious mind can't control. This explains why poker players wear sunglasses and why investigators watch eyes. You can control your words, but not your autonomic nervous system. The eyes, literally, are windows to deception. You process 34 gigabytes of information daily, mostly unconsciously. Research estimates the brain processes 34 gigabytes of information per day, equivalent to watching TV 24/7. Yet you're consciously aware of maybe 0.0004% of this processing. Your consciousness is the tip of a massive cognitive iceberg. This explains why you feel mentally exhausted despite doing nothing. Your brain processes tens of thousands of environmental inputs, social cues, and internal calculations you never noticed. Awareness is not awareness of processing. You hold grudges against those who criticized you, but forget those who praised you. Negative social interactions are remembered 5 times longer and more vividly than positive ones of equal intensity. 1 insult drowns out 5 compliments. Your brain tags social threats as high priority storage. This explains why you remember that one mean comment from 5 years ago, but forget yesterday's compliment. Social pain has evolutionary purpose. Social pleasure is disposable. You walk 7,500 steps daily on average, but need 10,000 for health benefits. The average American walks 3,000 to 4,000 steps daily. Active individuals hit 7,500. Health benefits begin at 10,000 steps. Most people are 30 to 70% below the threshold needed for cardiovascular health. This explains the step tracking industry and why sitting diseases proliferate. You think you're active because you walk to the car, the office, the kitchen, but none of that accumulates to health protective levels. You experience choice-supported bias, making past decisions seem better than they were. Once a decision is made, your brain retroactively inflates its positive qualities and minimizes negatives. The car you bought becomes the best car. The college you attended becomes the best school. Choice creates commitment, creates justification. This explains why people defend their choices so vigorously and why buyer's remorse is temporary. Your brain protects past decisions by rewriting memory. You didn't make the best choice. Your memory made it seem best afterward. You can't tickle yourself because your brain predicts and cancels the sensation. The cerebellum predicts sensory consequences of self-generated actions and cancels the surprise element necessary for tickling. You can tickle others because their actions are unpredictable. Self-tickling fails because there's no surprise. This explains why all tickling is social and why you can't surprise yourself. Your brain runs constant predictive models of your body's actions, filtering out expected sensations to highlight the unexpected. You speak 20% faster when anxious or excited. Emotional arousal increases speech rate from a normal 125 to 150 words per minute to 180 to 200. Anxiety and excitement produce identical effects. Your mouth speeds up when your nervous system activates. This explains why people talk fast when nervous and why excitement makes you ramble. It's not conscious choice. Your autonomic nervous system has hijacked speech tempo. Calm creates slow speech. Arousal creates rapid speech. You prefer round numbers when estimating, but distrust them when hearing them from others. People naturally round estimates to multiples of 5 or 10. Yet when others give round numbers, we perceive them as guesses rather than precise data. Your brain rounds but distrusts rounding. The standard is hypocritical. This explains why $99.99 seems more researched than $100, why about 50 people sounds less credible than 47 people. Round numbers signal approximation. Specific numbers signal precision, even when both are equally accurate. You eat 25% more slowly when using non-dominant hand. Switching utensils to non-dominant hand slows eating by 25–30%, allowing satiety signals to register before overconsumption. The awkwardness forces mindfulness, difficulty becomes portion control. This explains why chopstick users are often slimmer and why mindful eating works. It's not about savoring, it's about slowing consumption enough for your stomach to tell your brain it's full before you're overstuffed. You have 50,000 to 70,000 thoughts per day, and 95% are the same as yesterday. Your brain generates 50,000 to 70,000 thoughts daily, but 95% are repetitions from prior days. You're mostly rethinking old thoughts. Mental novelty is rare, default mode is replay. This explains why breaking habits is hard and why new environments spark creativity. Your mental grooves are deep. Same environment triggers same thought patterns. Change location, change thoughts. You spend 13 years of your life learning, but only 8 months reading books afterward. The average person spends 13 years in formal education, but reads only 4 books per year post-graduation. Over a 50-year adult life, that's 200 books or roughly 8 months of reading. Learning stops when school stops. This explains declining literacy and critical thinking. 13 years of training followed by 50 years of atrophy. Your brain is a muscle that most people stop exercising at age 22. You can distinguish 1 trillion different scents, but only name a few dozen. Olfactory receptors can discriminate between over 1 trillion odors, yet most people can't name more than 50 to 100 distinct smells. Detection vastly exceeds description. Your nose knows more than your vocabulary can express. This explains why smell triggers powerful memories you can't describe. Olfactory data bypasses language centers, connecting directly to memory and emotion. You smell richly but speak poorly about it. You experience semantic satiation, where words lose meaning after repetition. Repeating a word 30 to 40 times makes it temporarily lose meaning. The sound becomes divorced from concept. Road becomes just rod sounds. Semantic connection dissolves through overexposure. This explains why studying vocabulary until words feel meaningless works. Your brain's word recognition system temporarily shorts out from overuse. The reset period is about 30 seconds before meaning returns. You gesture more when you can't find the right words. Co-speech gestures increase 40–60% during word-finding difficulty. Your hands try to communicate what your mouth can't access. Gesturing actually helps retrieve words from memory by activating motor memory network. This explains why people gesture more when excited or drunk. Either the words come fast, excitement, or slow, intoxication, and hands compensate. Gesture and speech share neural real estate. You rate yourself as above average in 70% of traits, which is statistically impossible. Self-enhancement bias makes 70–90% of people rate themselves above average in positive attributes. Everyone can't be above average, yet everyone believes they are. Your self-assessment is systematically inflated. This explains confidence despite incompetence and why everyone thinks they're better than average drivers, lovers, and friends. Your brain protects ego by distorting reality. Honesty would hurt, so you lie to yourself. You breathe through 1 nostril at a time, alternating every 2 to 3 hours. Nasal cycle alternates airflow dominance between nostrils throughout the day. At any moment, 1 nostril does 75% of breathing while the other rests. This cycle continues unconsciously 24/7. This explains why sometimes 1 nostril feels congested when you're not sick. It's just in the resting phase of the cycle. Both are functional, just taking turns as primary airway. You experience cryptomnesia, thinking you generated ideas that you actually heard before. Unconscious plagiarism occurs when you recall information without remembering the source, leading you to believe it's your original idea. Memory stores content but sometimes loses attribution. Theft becomes accidental. This explains many plagiarism accusations and why brainstorming groups often reconverge on the same ideas. You genuinely don't remember hearing it before. The idea feels new because the source memory is missing. You eat 80% of your meals in the same 3 to 5 locations repeatedly. Location habits dominate eating behavior. People rotate between roughly 3 to 5 eating locations: kitchen table, work desk, couch, car, favorite restaurants. Food variety might change, but venue rarely does. This explains why changing eating location aids weight loss and why you associate places with food. Location becomes eating trigger. Sit on couch, want snack. Your brain links place to consumption pattern. You wait 11 minutes before leaving a conversation you want to exit. Social politeness creates an average 11-minute gap between wanting to leave a conversation and actually leaving. You're trapped by courtesy, generating filler conversation while calculating escape. This explains why small talk drags and why you feel exhausted after social events. You weren't socializing for an hour. You were mentally trying to leave for 40 minutes. While physically staying, the disconnect is exhausting. You make 226 decisions daily just about food, most without awareness. From what to eat, when to eat, how much, where, with whom, food decisions, number 226 daily on average. Yet you're consciously aware of perhaps 10 to 15. Most food choices are automatic and unconscious. This explains why mindful eating is hard and why you can't remember what you ate. You weren't paying attention. Your autopilot made 200 plus food decisions while you thought about other things. You experienced choice overload, leading to no choice when presented with 10 plus options. Decision paralysis sets in at approximately 10 options. Below 10, more choice improves satisfaction. Above 10, more choice decreases satisfaction and increases likelihood of no decision. Options become oppressive. This explains menu anxiety and why curated selections sell better than endless options. Your brain handles 6 to 7 options well. Beyond that, comparison burden exceeds decision capacity. Abundance kills action. You hold conversations at 1 to 2 feet distance with friends, 4 to 12 feet with strangers. Interpersonal distance reflects relationship intimacy. Intimate conversations happen at 6 to 18 inches. Personal space at 1.5 to 4 feet. Social space at 4 to 12 feet. Violating these zones creates discomfort. Distance communicates relationship status. This explains why elevators feel awkward and why you're uncomfortable when strangers stand too close. They're violating proxemic norms. The discomfort isn't personal, it's territorial. You remember context better than content after 24 hours. Memory prioritizes context over content. After one day, you remember where and when information was presented better than what was presented. The container outlasts the contents. This explains why you remember the meeting but not what was discussed, why you recall the restaurant but not the conversation. Context provides memory scaffolding. Content fills in temporarily, then fades. You use emotional memory tags to prioritize what to store long term. Emotionally charged events receive priority encoding and storage. The brain tags emotional experiences as important, save this. Neutral information gets minimal encoding. Emotion is the bookmark for memory. This explains why you remember your wedding day but not last Tuesday. Emotion creates salience. Your brain assumes emotional events matter more and allocates storage accordingly. Feel nothing, remember nothing. You spend 5 years of your life in lines waiting, mostly at checkout counters. The average person spends approximately 3 to 5 years of their life waiting in various lines: grocery stores, banks, traffic, DMV, airports. Waiting is a hidden time tax on modern life. This explains rage at slow checkouts and airport security frustration. You're not overreacting. You're watching life drain away in increments. 5 years of standing still while time passes. You process 10 million bits of sensory information per second but are aware of 40. Your senses collect approximately 10 million bits of data per second. Conscious awareness processes about 40 bits. That's 0.0004% awareness. Your consciousness is a tiny filter on massive input. This explains why eyewitness testimony is unreliable and why you miss obvious things. You're not seeing reality. You're seeing an extremely filtered interpreted summary that your brain labels reality. You shift positions 20 to 40 times per night while sleeping. Sleepers naturally shift positions 20 to 40 times per night to prevent pressure sores and maintain circulation. This movement is normal and necessary. Sleeping like a log is actually constant micro adjustment. This explains morning stiffness. If you don't move enough, illness or intoxication reduces movement, and why some sleeping positions leave marks. You're supposed to move. Static sleeping signals problems. You experience door handle phenomenon, remembering information right after tests. Immediately after exams or presentations, information you couldn't recall suddenly floods back. The stress of performance blocked retrieval. Release from pressure restores memory access. The answer was there, just locked behind cortisol. This explains why you know you knew something but couldn't recall it under pressure. Performance anxiety creates temporary retrieval blockage. The information exists, but stress makes it temporarily inaccessible. You judge time passing 40% faster when engaged than when bored. Time perception is purely subjective. Engaged hours fly while boring minutes crawl. The same 60 minutes feels like 30 when interesting, 100 when dull. Clock time and perceived time are completely different measurements. This explains why fun vacations feel short and why waiting rooms feel eternal. Your brain judges time by how many distinct memories formed. Boredom creates no memories, so time stretches. Engagement creates many memories, so time compresses. You exhibit attentional blink missing stimuli presented 200 to 500 milliseconds after a target. When your attention locks onto a stimulus, you're blind to subsequent stimuli for 200 to 500 milliseconds. This attentional blink is why you miss things happening right after something catches your focus. This explains why you don't see the car that hits you after you've focused on another car. Your attention was in refractory period. It's not that you weren't looking, you were attentionally blind. You speak 50-70% of conversation, but think you speak 30-40%. People vastly underestimate their own speaking time in conversations. You think you're balanced, but you're dominating. Most people believe they listen more than they talk. The math doesn't support this belief. This explains why everyone thinks they're a good listener and why conversations feel one-sided. Both parties think they're listening more. Both are wrong. Self-perception and reality diverge dramatically. You experience choice amnesia, forgetting you made a decision within hours. Small decisions fade from memory rapidly. What you wore 3 days ago, what you ate for lunch yesterday, forgotten. Your brain doesn't store trivial choices. Decision amnesia is storage optimization. This explains why you can't remember what you did all day despite being busy. You made 35,000 decisions, but your brain filed 0 under worth remembering. Busy doesn't mean memorable. You take 6 to 8 seconds to fall asleep on average, but it feels like 15 minutes. Sleep onset typically takes 6 to 8 minutes, but time perception distorts while falling asleep. You think you've been lying there for 20 minutes when it's been 5. Pre-sleep time dilation is universal. This explains insomnia, anxiety, and why you're convinced you barely slept when you actually slept 7 hours. Time perception is completely unreliable during sleep transitions. Your feeling and reality are mismatched. You process emotional faces 50 milliseconds faster than neutral faces. The brain prioritizes emotional expression processing. Angry, sad, or happy faces get processed 50 milliseconds faster than neutral ones. Emotion is express lane information. Neutral is regular shipping. This explains why you notice upset people faster than content one. Your brain scans crowds for emotional signals as threat divided by opportunity indicators. Neutral faces don't warrant rapid processing. You experience frequency illusion, noticing things more after you learn about them. Once you learn something, you see it everywhere. Not because frequency increased, but because your attention does. The phenomenon always existed. Your awareness just activated. Noticing creates more noticing. This explains why pregnancy seems contagious, or why everyone suddenly has your new car. They were always there. You just couldn't see what you didn't know. Awareness is not discovery. It's recognition. You rate music you hear in your teens as the best music ever permanently. Musical preference crystallizes during adolescence and remains stable. Songs from ages 13 to 25 are rated highest throughout life. This isn't quality judgment, it's neural association with identity formation. This explains every generation's belief their music was the peak and why older music sounds inferior. You're not objective, you're nostalgic. Your formative years were musically imprinted forever. You exhibit present biases, valuing immediate rewards 70% more than delayed ones. Immediate gratification feels worth far more than mathematically larger delayed rewards. $50 now feels better than $100 next month. Your brain heavily discounts future value. Present wins despite worse math. This explains debt, procrastination, and unhealthy habits. Future, you always pays for present use bias. You're not short-sighted, you're human. Present bias is hardwired. You experience change blindness, missing obvious alterations during visual interruption. If a scene briefly interrupts, even massive changes go unnoticed. Your brain doesn't store complete visual scenes, just summary impressions. Interrupt that impression and changes become invisible. This explains why continuity errors in films go unnoticed and why you don't see when someone changes clothes mid-conversation. You're not actually seeing everything, you're seeing selective highlights. You forget 75% of what you learn within 48 hours without review. The forgetting curve is brutal. Within 2 days, 75% of learned information vanishes without reinforcement. Learning requires repeated exposure. Single-pass learning is temporary by design. This explains why cramming fails and why rereading matters. Your brain assumes once encountered information is unimportant. Repetition signals importance. Without it, memory fades systematically. You can't multitask, but you think you can, and that belief hurts performance. Multitasking is actually rapid task switching. You're not doing two things simultaneously, you're rapidly alternating attention. Each switch costs time and accuracy. Multitasking reduces efficiency by 40%. This explains why people who think they're great multitaskers are actually worst at it. Confidence in multitasking correlates negatively with multitasking ability. The better you think you are, the worse you actually perform. You exhibit misinformation effect, incorporating false information into memories. Post-event information contaminates memory of the original event. If someone suggests details that didn't happen, you'll remember them as if they did. Memory is editable and suggestible. This explains false confessions and why eyewitness testimony is unreliable. You genuinely remember things that never happened because suggestion rewrote the memory. You're not lying. Your memory is... You experience choice rationalization immediately after deciding, before experiencing outcomes. Within seconds of making a choice, your brain begins rationalizing it as correct before you have any evidence. The decision creates instant backward justification. You chose it, therefore it's good. This explains buyer's remorse delay and why people defend decisions immediately. You're not evaluating the choice. You're protecting ego investment. The brain preemptively justifies to avoid future regret. You process negative information 30% faster than positive information. Bad news travels faster through your neurons than good news. The brain prioritizes threat over opportunity. Negative information gets express processing. Positive information takes the scenic route. This explains why bad news spreads faster and why criticism stings immediately while praise takes time to sink in. Your brain is built for survival, not happiness. Threat detection outpaces reward recognition. You spend 4.7 hours daily consuming media, mostly through multiple devices simultaneously. Media consumption averages 4.7 hours daily for adults, often through multiple screens simultaneously. You're watching TV while scrolling, phone while laptop displays emails. Serial attention fragmentation is the new normal. This explains mental exhaustion and information overload. You're not consuming 4.7 hours of media. You're consuming 8 to 10 hours compressed through simultaneous streaming. Your brain wasn't designed for parallel input channels. You exhibit social loafing, working 25% less hard in groups than alone. Individual effort decreases as group size increases. In groups, people unconsciously reduce contribution by 25–50%. Diffused responsibility creates permission to underperform. Groups hide individual laziness. This explains why committees are inefficient and why group projects frustrate. Everyone thinks they're pulling their weight. Everyone is actually coasting. The group creates cover for reduced effort. You experience hindsight bias as believing you predicted outcomes you didn't. After events occur, you genuinely believe you knew it all along. Memory rewrites to incorporate outcomes as if they were predicted. You didn't see it coming, you just think you did. This explains Monday morning quarterbacks and I told you so confidence. Your memory inserted prediction where none existed. You're not prescient. Your memory is revisionist. You can detect sarcasm in 1 to 2 seconds through tone, not words. Sarcasm detection happens almost instantaneously through prosody, not content. Your brain processes tone of voice separate from and faster than semantic meaning. The how of speech matters more than the what. This explains why text sarcasm needs emoji clarification and why phone conversations convey more than emails. Tone carries more information than words. Remove tone, remove meaning. You forget where you parked 40% of the time in large parking lots. Parking location memory is notoriously poor because the act lacks distinctiveness. Every parking space looks similar. Without unique memory markers, location information fades within minutes. This explains parking lot wandering and why you should photograph your parking spot. Your brain needs distinctiveness to encode memory. Similar spaces don't create distinct memories. Location needs tags to be remembered. You eat 25% more at all you can eat buffets despite planning not to. Buffet environments trigger overconsumption regardless of prior intentions. The visual abundance and variety override satiety signals. You planned restraint, but environment hijacks behavior. This explains why buffets feel like a good deal but leave you uncomfortable. You ate more than you wanted or needed. The value wasn't in food consumed. It was in choice overwhelm leading to overconsumption. You experience false urgency, treating emails as more time-sensitive than they are. Email creates artificial urgency. Most messages aren't urgent, but immediate notification creates pressure to respond quickly. You're confusing immediacy when received with importance, actual priority. This explains email stress and why turning off notifications improves productivity. The ping creates false emergency. Without it, you respond based on actual priority rather than arrival sequence. You gesture 40% more when speaking in a second language you're not fluent in. Non-native speakers increase gesturing significantly to compensate for linguistic gaps. Hands supplement words. The less fluent the language, the more physical the communication. This explains why people mock over-gesturing foreigners. They're not culturally different. They're linguistically compensating. When words fail, bodies assist. Gesture fills vocabulary gaps. You exhibit positive test strategy, only looking for information that confirms beliefs. When testing hypotheses, people search for confirming evidence rather than disconfirming evidence. You look for reasons you're right, not reasons you're wrong. Confirmation seeking is default reasoning mode. This explains political polarization and why debates don't change minds. You're not seeking truth. You're seeking validation. The goal isn't to be right, it's to feel right. Search strategy guarantees finding what you're looking for. You spend 2 hours daily in micro-transitions between activities without productivity. Switching between activities requires cognitive transition time. These microgaps total approximately 2 hours daily of mental gear shifting. You're not being productive or resting, you're transitioning. This explains why fragmented days feel exhausting despite accomplishing little. You spent more time shifting gears than actually driving. Continuous focus outperforms fractured attention because it eliminates transition tax. You experience cocktail party effect, hearing your name across crowded rooms. Selective attention allows you to hear your name even in loud environments where you can't hear other conversations. Your brain constantly monitors ambient noise for personally relevant information. This explains why you tune in when hearing your name and why you catch conversations about you despite not actively listening. Attention isn't voluntary. Your name triggers automatic engagement. You make 70% of purchasing decisions in-store, not pre-planned. Despite shopping lists and intentions, 70% of purchases are impulse decisions made at point of sale. Retail environment, product placement, and emotional state override planning. The store redesigns your intentions. This explains grocery budget failures and why online shopping reduces spending. Physical retail hijacks decision-making. Sensory bombardment overrides rational planning. The store is a decision manipulation machine. You exhibit rosy retrospection, remembering past events as better than experienced. Memories improve over time. Negative aspects fade while positive aspects strengthen. The past genuinely seems better in memory than it was in reality. Nostalgia is memory distortion. This explains good old days thinking and why past relationships seem perfect after breakups. Your memory is an editor that softens pain and amplifies pleasure. You're not remembering accurately. You're remembering romantically. You can only focus truly for 90 to 120 minutes before requiring a break. Ultradian rhythms dictate 90 to 120-minute focus cycles followed by 20-minute recovery periods. Pushing beyond this creates diminishing returns. Your brain needs rhythmic rest. Continuous focus is myth. This explains afternoon crashes and why morning productivity peaks. You're not lazy after lunch. You've exhausted your ultradian cycle. Breaks aren't weakness. They're biological necessity. You speak in ums and ahs every 7 to 10 seconds in casual conversation. Verbal fillers occur every 7 to 10 seconds in spontaneous speech. These aren't errors. They're placeholders, maintaining conversational flow while planning next phrases. Silence creates awkwardness. Fillers prevent it. This explains why public speaking training focuses on eliminating fillers. You use them constantly in casual talk. Only performance contexts require their elimination. Fillers are normal in natural speech. You experience source amnesia, remembering information, but not where you learned it. Memory stores content separately from source. You remember the fact, but forget whether you read it, heard it, or dreamed it. Information detaches from origin. Knowledge becomes sourceless. This explains why you cite things incorrectly and why you're sure you're right but can't say why. The information is stored, the origin isn't. You know things without knowing how you know them. You spend 38 hours annually searching for items you've misplaced at home. The average person spends 38 hours per year looking for lost items like keys, phones, wallets, and remotes. That's nearly a full work week of just searching for things that never left your house. This explains why organization systems matter and why "I'll remember where I put it" never works. You won't remember. You'll spend 38 hours searching. Organization isn't aesthetic, it's temporal efficiency. You exhibit feature positive effect, noticing presence but missing absence. Your brain detects what's there but misses what's missing. You notice an extra item faster than a missing one. Presence registers, absence doesn't. Detection is asymmetric. This explains why proofreading misses omissions and why security breaches happen. You see additions easily, subtractions invisible until someone points them out. Your attention highlights presence, ignores absence. You process emotional memories in the amygdala, but factual memories in the hippocampus. Different types of memories use different brain structures. Emotional memories bypass rational processing through the amygdala. Factual memories route through hippocampus. This explains why emotions feel true even when facts say otherwise. This explains why you can't argue someone out of emotional beliefs and why feelings seem like facts. They use different neural pathways. Emotion and reason literally operate in different brain regions. You experience effort, justification, valuing outcomes more when they required more work. The harder something was to achieve, the more you value it, regardless of objective worth. Effort creates value. Difficulty becomes proxy for importance. Struggle produces significance. This explains fraternity hazing, expensive therapies' perceived effectiveness, and why free things seem worthless. You don't value things for what they are, you value them for what they cost. Price isn't money, it's effort. You spend 16 minutes daily deciding what to wear, totaling 100 hours annually. Clothing decisions consume 16 minutes daily on average. Over a year, that's 100 hours spent choosing outfits. Over a lifetime, nearly half a year standing in front of closets, deciding. This explains capsule wardrobes and why successful people wear uniforms. They're not eliminating fashion, they're eliminating decision cost. Those 16 daily minutes compound into enormous time waste. You exhibit Availability cascade, believing things are true because you hear them repeatedly. Repeated exposure increases perceived truth. Ideas become believable through familiarity alone. The more you hear something, the more true it seems. Repetition creates reality. This explains propaganda effectiveness and why advertising works. It's not about logical persuasion. It's about repetition, creating familiarity, creating truth. Hear it enough times and you'll believe it. You process music in emotion centers, not language centers. Music bypasses linguistic processing entirely, routing through emotional and motor regions. This explains why music transcends language barriers and why songs trigger emotions words can't. This explains why music therapy works for stroke victims who've lost speech and why you remember song lyrics but not vocabulary. Music isn't language, it's emotion with sound. The brain treats them completely differently. You experience Google effect, forgetting information you know is available online. Digital externalization of memory makes you forget information you're confident you can retrieve later. If Google knows it, you don't need to. Memory allocation shifts from internal storage to access knowledge. This explains why people seem to know less despite having more information access. They do know less. They've outsourced memory to devices. The information exists, but not in them. You can detect lies with 54% accuracy, barely better than chance. Despite confidence in lie detection, accuracy hovers around 54%, only slightly above 50/50 guessing. You think you're good at spotting liars. Statistics prove you're not. Deception detection is nearly random. This explains wrongful convictions and why poker tells are overrated. You're essentially guessing. Confidence exceeds ability dramatically. You feel certain while being wrong half the time. You exhibit denomination effect, spending physical cash 30% more reluctantly than cards. Paying with cash creates more psychological pain than cards or digital payments. Physical exchange feels more real. Card swipes feel abstract. Payment method affects spending willingness significantly. This explains credit card debt and why stores push card payments. Cash friction prevents purchases. Card abstraction enables overconsumption. The physical act of handing over money creates loss aversion cards don't trigger. You spend 5 to 7 hours weekly in meetings but retain only 20% of discussed content. Meeting attendance totals 5 to 7 hours weekly for average workers, yet retention of meeting content is approximately 20%. Most meeting time produces no lasting memory or action. Attendance isn't absorption. This explains why nobody knows what was decided in meetings and why email summaries are essential. You are physically present, mentally absent. Presence doesn't equal processing. Bodies attend, minds wander. You experience unconscious plagiarism, recreating others' ideas, believing they're original. Cryptomnesia makes you reproduce ideas, phrases, or creations you were exposed to previously, genuinely believing they're your original work. The memory exists, but the source information is lost. This explains many plagiarism cases and creative disputes. You're not intentionally stealing. You're unconsciously recalling. The idea feels original because source memory is missing. Originality is often forgotten inspiration. You make snap judgments about intelligence based on speaking speed. Fast speakers are perceived as 20% more intelligent and credible than slow speakers saying identical content. Speed signals confidence and quick thinking. Pace becomes intelligence proxy. This explains why auctioneers and salespeople speak rapidly and why thoughtful pauses make you seem uncertain. Your brain judges intelligence by processing speed. Slow speech suggests slow thinking, regardless of actual intelligence. You experience self-reference effect, remembering information better when relating it to yourself. Information personally relevant or related to self-concept is remembered 200% better than identical information framed impersonally. Making it about you makes it stick. Ego is memory glue. This explains why personalized learning works and why stories beat statistics. When you're the main character, memory improves dramatically. Everything processes through the lens of self. Egocentric processing enhances retention. You spend 8 hours yearly waiting for delayed flights, mostly in frustration. Flight delays average to approximately 8 hours per year for frequent flyers, creating prolonged stress periods. Time compression makes this wait feel even longer. Helplessness amplifies irritation. This explains airport rage and travel stress. You're not overreacting to delays. You're experiencing loss of control combined with wasted time. The combination is psychologically toxic. Waiting with no agency creates disproportionate frustration. You exhibit planning fallacy, underestimating task duration by 40% on average. People consistently underestimate how long tasks will take by 40–50%, even when aware of this bias. Optimism overrides experience. Your estimates are always too short. Past evidence doesn't correct future predictions. This explains chronic lateness and missed deadlines. You're not bad at time management. You're human. Planning fallacy is universal. Everyone thinks they're the exception. Nobody is. You experience weapon focus during crimes, remembering the weapon but not the criminal's face. High-stress situations narrow attention dramatically. Witnesses remember weapons in vivid detail but can't identify perpetrators. Threat captures all attention. Peripheral information disappears. This explains eyewitness unreliability in violent crimes. You weren't bad at observing. Your attention was hijacked by threat. The weapon consumed cognitive resources. Nothing else could register. You spend 1 hour daily in decision, fatigue, paralysis, avoiding choices. After making many decisions, you enter paralysis where even simple choices feel overwhelming. This decision fatigue creates approximately 1 hour daily of avoidance behavior. You're not lazy, you're depleted. This explains why you can't decide what to watch after a busy day and why willpower decreases throughout the day. Decisions are limited resource. Once depleted, even trivial choices become impossible. You exhibit temporal discounting, valuing immediate rewards exponentially more than delayed ones. Future rewards lose value at approximately 10% per day of delay. Something a week away is worth half what it would be today. Your brain exponentially discounts the future. Tomorrow is worth less than today. Always. This explains procrastination, debt, and delayed gratification failure. Future benefits feel abstractly worthless. Present costs feel concretely painful. The math says wait. Psychology says now. You remember 10% more information when standing than sitting. Standing increases arousal and attention, improving memory encoding by 10%. Posture affects cognition. Vertical position enhances mental processing. Your body position shapes brain function. This explains standing desks and why pacing helps thinking. Movement and verticality increase blood flow and alertness. Sitting is comfortable but cognitively disadvantageous. You experience mere ownership effect, valuing things more once you possess them. The moment you own something, its value increases 40 to 100% in your perception. Ownership creates attachment independent of objective worth. Having it makes it precious. This explains why selling possessions feels like loss and why returns are painful. You owned it, even briefly. That created disproportionate value. Ownership is emotional transaction, not just legal one. You spend 28 hours annually in traffic, mostly experiencing cortisol spikes. Traffic time averages 54 minutes weekly in urban areas, totaling 28 hours yearly. This time consistently triggers stress hormones. Sitting still while wanting to move creates psychological conflict. This explains road rage and traffic health impacts. You're experiencing physical constraint while mentally agitated. The mismatch between body and mind creates stress that accumulates into health problems. You exhibit optimism bias, believing bad things happen to others, not you. People estimate their own risk of negative events as 20–50% lower than average risk. Everyone believes they're exception to statistics. You think bad things happen to other people. This explains why people don't save for emergencies or follow safety protocols. You genuinely don't believe bad things will happen to you. The bias is protective but dangerous. You experience masked priming, where briefly flashed words influence behavior unconsciously. Words flash for 30 milliseconds. Too fast for conscious detection. Influence subsequent decisions and behavior. Subliminal influence is real. Your behavior is shaped by stimuli you never consciously see. This explains advertising effectiveness and environmental influence on behavior. You're being primed constantly by stimuli below awareness threshold. Consciousness isn't required for influence. You spend 4 hours monthly in revenge, bedtime procrastination, sacrificing sleep for leisure. Revenge, bedtime procrastination, staying up late despite fatigue to reclaim personal time, costs approximately 4 hours monthly. You're tired but refuse sleep. The day stole your time. Night is revenge. This explains chronic sleep deprivation despite knowing better. It's not ignorance. It's compensation. You sacrifice tomorrow to own tonight. The borrowed time always costs more than you expect. You exhibit anchoring biases where first information disproportionately influences judgment. Initial information creates reference point that subsequent information adjusts from rather than replaces. First impressions don't just matter. They control all future processing. The anchor drags everything toward it. This explains negotiation tactics and why first offers matter. That initial number becomes gravitational center. All subsequent numbers orbit around it. First is forever influential. You experience shower thoughts due to default mode network activation. Relaxing activities like showering activate default mode network, enabling mind-wandering and creative connections. The brain shifts from focus to diffuse thinking. Problem-solving happens in the absence of trying. This explains why solutions come during mundane activities and why breaks improve creativity. Your brain works better when you're not actively making it work. Rest enables insight. You spend 11 minutes daily looking for your phone, despite it usually being within arm's reach. Average phone searching time is 11 minutes daily. The phone is typically close by, but visual scanning fails. Anxiety increases, further impairing search effectiveness. Panic creates blindness. This explains why asking someone to call your phone works. Stress narrowed your visual field. The phone was visible, but you couldn't see it. Calm restores perception. You exhibit false consensus effect, overestimating how many people agree with you. People overestimate consensus with their opinions by 20–30%. You think your views are more common than they are. Ego assumes others think like you. Agreement feels like default. This explains political polarization, shock, and social media bubbles. You genuinely believed most people agreed with you. They don't. You're surrounded by like-minded voices over-representing your position. You experience semantic priming processing related words 30% faster. After reading doctor, you process nurse 30% faster than unrelated words. Conceptual networks pre-activate. Related ideas become easier to access. Meaning spreads through mental associations. This explains tip-of-tongue phenomena and why word associations help memory. Your brain is a web of connections. Activating one node lights up nearby nodes. Meaning is networked, not isolated. You spend 2 hours weekly in pseudo-productivity looking busy while accomplishing nothing. Approximately 2 hours weekly are spent in performative work, appearing busy without actual output. You're managing appearance rather than completing tasks. Looking productive replaces being productive. This explains why open offices reduce productivity and why remote work increases output. Physical presence created performance pressure. Removal of audience enables actual work. You exhibit egocentric bias, remembering your contributions as larger than others remember them. You recall contributing 30–40% more to group efforts than others credit you. Memory inflates self-contribution. Everyone remembers doing more than they did. All parties overestimate their input. This explains partnership disputes and why everyone feels underappreciated. You did contribute significantly. So did everyone else. But everyone's mental accounting is self-inflated. You experience end-of-history illusion, believing you won't change despite past changes. People acknowledge past change but believe current self is final form. You've changed dramatically but expect future stability. Growth feels complete. Evolution feels finished. This explains resistance to personal development and why people don't invest in future selves. You believe you're done changing. History says you're not. The illusion persists regardless. You spend 45 minutes daily in attention residue thinking about previous tasks while starting new ones. Task switching leaves attention residue for 15–30 minutes. Part of your mind stays with the prior task while the new one demands focus. You're never fully present. Attention bleeds across boundaries. This explains why back-to-back meetings are exhausting and why transition time matters. You're not lazy for needing breaks. You're allowing attention residue to clear. Mental reset requires time. You exhibit IKEA effect, overvaluing items you assembled yourself. Self-assembled items are valued 63% higher than identical pre-assembled ones. Your labor creates emotional investment. Building it makes you love it. Effort becomes worth. This explains attachment to DIY projects and why handmade gifts feel precious. The value isn't in the object, it's in the labor invested. Sweat equity creates emotional equity. You experience miswanting, desiring things that don't actually make you happy. You pursue goals and purchases believing they'll bring happiness, then feel disappointed when they don't. Predicted happiness and actual happiness rarely match. You want things that won't satisfy. This explains buyer's remorse and midlife crises. You got exactly what you wanted. It didn't deliver what you expected. Desire and satisfaction are different systems with poor communication. You spend 3 years of your life eating, yet remember few meals. Eating occupies approximately 3 years of an average lifespan, yet memory of most meals fades within days. The act takes years, the memory takes nothing. Time spent doesn't guarantee memory stored. This explains why only special meals are remembered and why food photos exist. Your brain doesn't prioritize routine eating. Only novel or emotional meals earn storage. Thousands of meals vanish from memory. You exhibit spotlight effect fallacy, believing others notice your appearance changes when they don't. You overestimate how much others notice. Appearance changes by 40–60%. You think everyone sees your new haircut, weight change, or outfit. They mostly don't. They're worried about how they look. This explains appearance anxiety and why compliment fishing fails. You notice every minor change about yourself. Others barely register it. Everyone's spotlight points inward, not at you. You experience picture superiority effect, remembering images 6 times better than words. After 3 days, people retain 10% of heard information, 35% of text, and 65% of images. Pictures dominate memory. Visual information is privileged. Words are processed. Images are absorbed. This explains Instagram's success and why infographics work. Your brain is fundamentally visual. Text requires translation. Images speak directly to memory systems. Seeing beats reading by 6-fold. You spend 1 hour daily in partial attention states neither focused nor resting. Approximately 1 hour daily is spent in divided attention, where you're partially engaged with multiple things but fully focused on none. You're mentally scattered, achieving neither deep work nor genuine rest. This explains feeling busy but unaccomplished. You were neither working nor relaxing. You were floating between states, gaining benefits of neither. Partial attention is wasteful attention. You exhibit correspondence biases, attributing behavior to personality over situation. You explain others' actions through character while excusing your own through circumstance. They're rude because they're rude people. You're rude because you had a bad day. Same behavior, different explanation. This explains social judgment, harshness, and self-forgiveness. You grant yourself situational understanding while denying it to others. Empathy is selective. Understanding is asymmetric. You experience illusory truth, effect believing repeated statements regardless of accuracy. Statements heard repeatedly feel true, even when false. Familiarity breeds belief. Repetition creates truth feeling independent of actual truth. Your brain mistakes familiar for factual. This explains effectiveness of propaganda and advertising. It's not persuasive argument, it's relentless repetition. Hear it enough, and truth feeling emerges, despite knowing its manipulation. You spend 90 minutes daily waiting mostly for websites, apps, and videos to load. Digital waiting time totals 90 minutes daily. Buffering, loading, and lag accumulate into massive time loss. Technology promised speed but delivered waiting in tiny increments. This explains tech frustration and why fast internet feels essential. Those seconds compound into hours. The speed gain isn't convenience. It's reclaiming life from digital waiting rooms. You exhibit just world hypothesis, believing people deserve what happens to them. Your brain assumes the world is fair leading you to believe people's outcomes reflect their actions. Good people get good results. Bad people get bad results. Reality's randomness is psychologically intolerable. This explains victim blaming and success worship. You need to believe outcomes are deserved. Random suffering is too frightening. Justice feels mandatory even when evidence proves otherwise. You experience mood congruent memory, recalling memories matching current emotional state. Happy moods surface happy memories. Sad moods surface sad memories. Current emotion filters which past emotions become accessible. Your present colors your past. Mood becomes memory selector. This explains depression's self-perpetuation and why happiness breeds happiness. You're not just feeling one way, you're remembering selectively to reinforce that feeling. Emotion creates feedback loop through memory. You spend 4 hours weekly in pre-task procrastination, preparing to work instead of working. Approximately 4 hours weekly are spent organizing, planning, and setting up for work rather than doing work. Preparation becomes procrastination. Getting ready replaces getting done. This explains perfectionism, paralysis, and why simplifying systems improves output. The setup ritual delays action indefinitely. Starting badly beats preparing endlessly. Action beats planning. You exhibit curse of knowledge, unable to imagine not knowing what you know. Once you learn something, you can't remember what ignorance felt like. This makes explaining difficult. You skip steps, overestimate others' understanding, and become frustrated by confusion you can't access in yourself. This explains expert-novice communication failures and teaching difficulty. You can't unknow enough to meet beginners where they are. Knowledge creates blind spots about not knowing. You experience frequency biases, noticing things more after learning about them. Learning something new makes it seem suddenly prevalent. You didn't notice red cars until you bought one. Now they're everywhere. The frequency didn't change. Your attention did. This explains why new knowledge feels like discovery when it's actually recognition. The world didn't change. Your awareness changed. Noticing isn't finding. It's seeing what was always there. You spend 6 hours yearly in password recovery resetting forgotten credentials. Password resets consume approximately 6 hours annually. Memory fails, security demands complexity, and recovery processes waste time. Digital security creates time tax on everyday access. This explains password manager adoption and why simple passwords persist. The cost of secure passwords is constant cognitive load and inevitable recovery time. Security trades, convenience for safety. You exhibit mere exposure effect, preferring familiar options simply due to familiarity. Repeated exposure increases liking, even without positive experiences. Familiarity breeds preference. You like what you know, not because it's good, but because it's known. This explains brand loyalty and why novelty is hard. Your brain equates familiar with safe. Known options beat unknown ones regardless of objective quality. Repetition creates preference without reason. You experience implementation intention where detailed planning increases follow-through 300%. Specific if-then planning increases goal achievement from 22% to 62%. I'll exercise fails. I'll run 3 miles at 6 a.m. Monday at the park succeeds. Specificity creates commitment. Vague intentions vanish. This explains why New Year's resolutions fail and why detailed plans work. Intention without implementation is fantasy. Plan the when, where, and how, and likelihood triples. Specificity is success predictor. You spend 5 hours monthly in decision reversal regret, wishing you'd chosen differently. Post-decision regret occupies approximately 5 hours monthly. You replay scenarios, imagine alternatives, and torture yourself with what-ifs. Decisions made continue consuming attention long after. This explains choice paralysis and why fewer options improve satisfaction. More choices mean more regret opportunities. Every unchosen path becomes torture material. Decisions don't end at choice, they haunt afterward. You exhibit empathy gap, underestimating how much emotions influence behavior. In calm states, you can't imagine how you'll behave when emotional. Hungry, you make terrible decisions. Sober, you can't fathom. Emotional states are incomprehensible from outside them. This explains why resolutions fail and why you repeat mistakes. You can't predict emotional state behavior from rational state planning. The person who makes the promise isn't the person who breaks it. You experience Google amnesia, forgetting information immediately after searching it. Information accessed digitally is forgotten faster than information from physical sources. If Google knows it, your brain doesn't store it. External memory replaces internal memory. This explains why people seem to know less despite having more access. They do know less. They've outsourced storage to devices. The information exists, but not in them. You spend 3 hours daily in reactive mode, responding to notifications rather than initiating. Approximately 3 hours daily are spent reacting to external inputs, notifications, messages, and interruptions, rather than proactively pursuing goals. Your day is hijacked by others' priorities. This explains feeling busy while accomplishing nothing. You were productive, just not at your own goals. Reactive productivity serves others while neglecting self. Notification culture steals agency. You exhibit sunk cost fallacy, continuing bad investments because you've already invested. Past investment makes you continue despite future costs exceeding future benefits. You've already spent time, money, or effort, so you keep going. Prior loss becomes reason to lose more. This explains staying in bad relationships and watching terrible movies to the end. The sunk cost is gone regardless. But your brain can't accept waste, so it wastes more trying to validate past waste. You experience action bias, preferring doing something over doing nothing, even when nothing is better. When uncertain, you default to action, even when inaction is optimal. Doing something feels better than doing nothing. Action provides illusion of control. Stillness feels like failure. This explains overtreatment in medicine and why people can't sit still. Your brain interprets action as competence. Waiting or doing nothing feels like incompetence, even when it's the wise choice. You spend 2 years of your life on social media but can't recall 90% of what you saw. Social media consumes 2+ years of average lifespan, yet memory retention of consumed content is less than 10%. You spent years scrolling. You remember almost none of it. Time vanished into forgettable content. This explains post-scroll emptiness and why social media feels wasteful. You invested years. You gained nothing lasting. Entertainment without memory is time theft. The pleasure is temporary. The cost is permanent. You exhibit normalcy bias, underestimating disaster likelihood and impact. Your brain assumes future will resemble past. You can't imagine disruption despite evidence. Normalcy feels permanent. Change feels impossible. This bias makes you unprepared for inevitable disruption. This explains why people don't evacuate, don't save for emergencies, and don't prepare. Disaster doesn't feel real. Normal feels eternal. The bias protects psychological comfort while creating physical danger. You experience testing effect, remembering 50% more when quizzed than when restudying. Retrieval practice produces better retention than re-exposure. Testing yourself beats rereading by 50%. The struggle to remember is what creates memory. Easy review creates illusion of knowing. This explains why cramming fails and why practice tests work. Rereading feels productive but produces little learning. Testing feels hard but produces actual retention. Difficulty is feature, not bug. You spend 12 hours yearly in food decision fatigue, choosing what to eat. Meal decisions consume approximately 12 hours annually. What to eat, where, when, how much. Food choices create disproportionate decision burden. Simple survival need becomes complex daily challenge. This explains why meal planning and food routines reduce stress. You're eliminating dozens of daily decisions. The calories are necessary, the decisions are optional. Automation is liberation. You exhibit loss aversion feeling, losses 2.5 times more intensely than equivalent gains. Losing $100 hurts more than gaining $100 feels good. Lost pain exceeds gain pleasure by 2.5 to 1. Your brain weights negative more than positive. Avoiding loss motivates more than achieving gain. This explains risk aversion and why change is hard. The potential loss looms larger than potential gain. You're not being rational, you're being human. Loss hurts more than gain helps. You experience Zeigarnik effect, where incomplete tasks intrude on thoughts persistently. Unfinished tasks create mental tension that completed tasks don't. Your brain keeps incomplete work active in background processing. The open loop demands closure. Completion enables forgetting. This explains why to-do lists reduce anxiety and why cliffhangers work. Open loops create persistent cognitive load. Closing them frees mental resources. Completion is psychological relief, not just task accomplishment. You spend 6 months of your life in queues, mostly frustrated. Cumulative waiting in lines totals approximately 6 months over a lifetime. Grocery stores, DMV, airports, banks, traffic. Waiting is hidden life tax. Half a year standing still while time passes. This explains queue rage and why Amazon Prime succeeds. You're not overreacting. You're watching life drain away in increments. Waiting converts time alive into time wasted. The cost is existential. You exhibit present biases valuing current self 70% more than future self. Present you feels real, future you feels abstract. You sacrifice future you's well-being for present you's pleasure. Tomorrow might as well be someone else. Discount rate on future self is massive. This explains why you don't save, exercise, or invest. You're not helping future you. You're indulging present you. The cells are divided. Current always wins, future always pays. The brain remembers what you left undone louder than what you completed. The Zeigarnik effect makes unfinished tasks haunt your memory while completed ones fade quickly. Your brain obsesses over what remains undone. Incompletion becomes mental occupation. Closure frees the mind. This is why cliffhangers in TV shows feel unbearable, why you can't stop thinking about an argument that ended badly, and why to-do lists actually reduce anxiety. Crossing something off tells your brain to stop holding on to it. Familiarity doesn't breed contempt. It breeds preference. The mere exposure effect means repeated contact breeds affection, even for things initially disliked. Familiarity doesn't breed contempt, it cultivates comfort. What you see often becomes what you prefer. Repetition becomes attraction. This explains why radio plays the same songs until you love them, why arranged marriages often succeed, and why your hometown feels special despite its flaws. Your brain mistakes frequency for quality. You overestimate how much people notice you because you forget they're too busy worrying if you notice them. The spotlight effect makes you overestimate how much others notice your actions and appearance. You think everyone's watching, but they're worried about their own spotlight. Self-consciousness magnifies imagined scrutiny. That embarrassing thing you did last week? Nobody remembers it except you. Everyone's too busy replaying their own embarrassing moments. The spotlight you feel is mostly in your own head. Ignorance speaks with certainty. Knowledge whispers with doubt. Dunning-Kruger effect shows incompetent people overestimate abilities while experts doubt themselves. Ignorance breeds confidence while knowledge breeds humility. The less you know, the more certain you become. This is why beginners give advice confidently while masters say, "It depends." True expertise reveals complexity that shakes confidence. The most dangerous person in the room is the one who knows the least but speaks the loudest. Once you see it, you'll see it everywhere. But it was always there. Bader-Meinhof phenomenon makes something appear everywhere once you notice it first. Your brain filters reality to confirm new awareness. Pattern recognition creates illusion of sudden prevalence. Buy a red car, and suddenly every third car is red. Learn a new word, and everyone starts using it. Your brain isn't discovering new patterns. It's finally paying attention to what always existed. Too many choices kill the joy of choosing. Paradox of choice shows too many options decrease satisfaction and increase regret. Freedom becomes paralysis when selection overwhelms decision-making capacity. Abundance creates anxiety rather than joy. This is why Netflix browsing takes longer than watching. Why dating apps exhaust rather than excite. Why restaurants with smaller menus get better reviews. More options mean more doubt about the road not taken. They're incompetent. You just had bad luck. Fundamental attribution error blames others' failures on character while excusing your own as circumstance. They're incompetent, you had bad luck. Double standards protect self-image while judging others harshly. When someone cuts you off in traffic, they're a terrible driver. When you cut someone off, you are rushing to an emergency. This bias destroys relationships because it makes forgiveness one-sided. Perfection makes you suspicious. Flaws make you human. The pratfall effect makes people more likable after minor mistakes, as imperfection signals authenticity. Controlled vulnerability builds trust. The perfect seem suspicious. The flawed seem human. This is why relatable content outperforms polished content. Why admitting I don't know builds credibility. Why the most beloved celebrities are the ones who mess up publicly. Vulnerability is magnetic. Everyone believes they're above average, which is statistically impossible but psychologically inevitable. Illusory superiority makes most people rate themselves above average in positive traits. A statistical impossibility. Everyone believes they're better than everyone else. Self-assessment inflates systematically. 90% of drivers think they're above average drivers. 94% of professors think they're above average teachers. Your brain protects your ego by distorting reality. Self-awareness is realizing you're not the exception. Do someone a favor and you'll like them more, not less. The Benjamin Franklin effect shows doing favors for someone makes you like them more, not less. We justify our actions by deciding recipients deserved our help. Effort becomes affection. Franklin borrowed books from rivals to turn them into allies. When you help someone, your brain asks, why did I do that? And answers, because they must be worth helping. Your actions create your feelings, not the reverse. Women never forget how you treated them when they needed you most. Women remember how men treated them during vulnerable moments with crystalline clarity, encoding these memories in emotional brain centers. Support during crisis becomes permanent relationship definition. Character reveals itself when help is needed most. Show up when she's sick, scared, or struggling, and she'll remember forever. Disappear during her hardest moments, and no amount of flowers will erase it. Crisis reveals who you really are, and she'll never unsee it. Loyalty through difficulty is worth more than enthusiasm through ease. When someone overcomes significant obstacles to remain in your life despite your imperfections, their commitment transcends conditional love. Loyalty through difficulty signals rare emotional investment. Such dedication deserves protection and reciprocation. Anyone can love you when you're easy to love. The ones who stay when you're difficult, broken, or lost, those are the ones worth keeping. Fair weather friends are everywhere. All weather friends are treasure. You can hear their voice in their text messages because your brain fills in what's missing. Familiarity with someone's communication patterns creates mental voice simulation when reading their text messages. The brain reconstructs their vocal signature from memory. Digital words become auditory hallucinations of connection. This is why texts from someone you love feel warmer than identical words from a stranger, why you can tell someone's mood from punctuation. Your brain turns letters into living voices. If you have to remind someone you exist, you already have your answer. Forced reminders of your existence signal relationship imbalance and insecurity. Authentic connection requires no announcement. Silence reveals who remembers you naturally versus who needs prompting. If they wanted to talk to you, they would. If they wanted to see you, they'd make time. Attention given freely means everything. Attention you have to beg for means nothing. Fake a smile long enough and your brain forgets you're faking. Smiling activates neural pathways that improve mood regardless of initial emotional state. The physical act of smiling tricks the brain into releasing happiness chemicals. Facial expression becomes emotional manipulation of self. Your face tells your brain how to feel, not the other way around. Force a smile for 60 seconds and your mood actually improves. Your body can lie to your mind, and sometimes that lie becomes truth. Love changes your brain chemistry, literally. Experiencing love and intimacy releases oxytocin and dopamine, creating neurological reward patterns that increase life satisfaction and meaning. Connection becomes biological necessity. Relationships literally change brain chemistry. This is why heartbreak feels like withdrawal, why isolation makes you sick, why humans in solitary confinement lose their minds. Your brain on love looks identical to a brain on drugs. Connection is survival. Good things come to those who wait, but only if waiting increases the value. Delayed gratification often indicates larger rewards approaching. as patience correlates with better outcomes in achievement studies. Waiting builds anticipation that amplifies eventual satisfaction. Time becomes value multiplier. This is why Christmas morning beats Christmas afternoon. Why earned victories taste sweeter than handed trophies. Why absence makes the heart grow fonder. Anticipation is half the pleasure. Love without respect is resentment waiting to happen. Love without respect creates resentment. Care without boundaries enables dysfunction. Truth without compassion wounds deeply. Trust without consistency breeds anxiety. Each element requires balance for relationship sustainability. You can love someone and still be destroying them. Healthy relationships need all the ingredients, not just affection. Love alone is not enough. It never was. Never argue with someone who has nothing to lose. Arguing with those who lack logic or self-awareness wastes cognitive resources while achieving nothing productive. Engagement with irrationality damages your own mental state. Some battles cost more than victory offers. When you argue with fools, you give them an audience. When you engage with trolls, you feed them energy. Some people don't want truth, they want attention. Silence is sometimes the strongest response. Power doesn't just corrupt, it literally shrinks your empathy. Power and authority reduce empathy through decreased mirror neuron activation and perspective-taking ability. Leadership positions literally diminish emotional intelligence. Status becomes compassion barrier. This is why CEOs make ruthless decisions easily. Why rich people seem disconnected from reality. Why authority figures struggle with basic kindness. Power doesn't reveal character. It changes brain function. Your 20s hurt the most because you're building a life with tools you're still learning to use. Depression peaks between ages 18 and 33 when identity formation, career pressure, and relationship instability converge. Youth combines maximum stress with minimum coping skills. The formative years hurt most. You're expected to choose a career before you know yourself. Find love before you know what you need. Build wealth before you understand money. The hardest decade is the one where you're learning to be human. Young love doesn't just feel different, it wires differently. Relationships beginning between ages 16 and 28 show higher stability rates due to neuroplasticity and identity integration during partner bonding. Young love physically wires into developing brains. Early attachment becomes permanent architecture. Your first real love literally shapes how you'll love forever. The person you date at 22 doesn't just touch your heart, they rewire your brain. This is why first loves are unforgettable. They're embedded in your neural architecture. During a fight, she doesn't want you to solve it. She wants you to hold her. During conflict, women often seek physical comfort over verbal solutions, as oxytocin released from hugging reduces stress hormones faster than discussion. Touch heals what words cannot reach. Embrace becomes resolution. Men try to fix problems with logic. Women need connection before correction. A hug during an argument isn't avoiding the issue, it's addressing the real issue, which is feeling disconnected. Men stare, women glance. Both mean the same thing. Eye contact patterns differ by gender during attraction, with men maintaining direct gaze, while women employ intermittent glancing to signal interest without appearing aggressive. Looking reveals liking through different lenses. Attraction speaks multiple visual languages. If a man likes you, he'll hold your gaze. If a woman likes you, she'll look away quickly, then look back. Same interest, different signals. Evolution coded attraction into eye movement. Forgiveness heals the one who forgives more than the one forgiven. Forgiveness activates reward centers while reducing amygdala activity, literally making forgivers happier and healthier through reduced stress response. Letting go heals the one who releases. Mercy becomes self-care. Holding grudges raises your blood pressure, disrupts your sleep, and ages you faster. Forgiveness isn't about them. It's about freeing yourself from the prison of resentment. The chains you think bind them actually bind you. The beard doesn't make you more masculine. It makes people see you as more masculine. Facial hair density in men correlates with perceived masculinity and dominance in social judgments. Beards signal testosterone and maturity through visual shortcuts. Hair becomes status communication. Studies show bearded men are rated as stronger, more mature, and better fathers, regardless of actual qualities. Your face is a billboard broadcasting assumptions about your character. Biology becomes psychology. The secrets you share create the bonds you keep. Sharing personal struggles and vulnerabilities with specific individuals indicates deep trust and emotional intimacy formation. Confession becomes connection currency. Secrets shared create bonds that silence cannot. This is why strangers on planes tell you their life stories. Why therapy creates powerful bonds. Why vulnerability is the fast track to intimacy. The walls you drop become the bridges you build. Women can't keep secrets because silence feels like carrying weight alone. Women cannot keep significant secrets beyond 47 hours on average before sharing with trusted confidants, as emotional processing requires verbal externalization. Silence creates internal pressure. Speaking becomes emotional release valve. This isn't gossip, it's processing. Women think out loud to understand how they feel. Keeping secrets means carrying emotional weight without support. Sharing isn't betrayal, it's survival.